We got our Raspberry Pi all put together, ready to boot up. And I've got it sitting here ready to go. And I'm going to switch over to the screen view so you can see what happens as this machine comes online. And I'll talk to you about what choices to make as it progresses through the installation. So be right back with a screenshot of this thing. I'll go ahead and plug it in and we'll see what happens. So cross your fingers. And we should see a big square of colors that says it detects the monitor and everything looks good, it's happy. So it adjusts the video a little bit. And it's opening up the partition manager. There we go. That worked. So now, lucky you, right? So you fire this thing up, you get it out of the box, and you're sort of like, which one of these do I want? It's kind of nice to have these options, and there are a bunch of them. But the option that you want to probably start out with is the operating system called Raspbian. And Raspbian is we call it a build of Linux that's designed especially to run on the Raspberry Pi. So that's the best choice. So I will go ahead and select it. While I'm here, I'll probably have to change this stuff again, but I'm going to switch to English US keyboard, and the keyboard's going to be English. I don't think it's going to affect us at this point. One of the things we'll have to do later on is probably select the proper keyboard, and that's something I'll cover with you. Okay, so I'm ready to get started on the installation. I've selected Raspbian, and I will select this install. And it says, now wait a minute, human, you're going to overwrite the SD card, the storage device, that hard drive that this thing uses. So you know what, we're okay with that. We're going to take the noob's boot system off and we're going to replace it with a Raspbian system. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes to that. And it started its download of the system. And during the time that this is installing, you'll see various things pop up on the screen. But it's downloading the operating system from the internet and installing it on your SD card. When it's all done, and we'll show you that here in a bit, so we're going to kind of cut and come back. When it's all done, you will see a selection like a utility that will make our other setup choices in. So in the interest of saving you a bit of time watching this thing download, we'll cut away and come back to it, and I'll show you what your next steps are. So meanwhile, if you're doing this following me at home, just enjoy the little screens that pop up and get a cup of coffee. I'll be back. Well, hey, we're back. If you've been patient enough and the internet gods have smiled on you, your installation might be done. And so that's where I'm at with my Raspberry Pi device right now. So we're going to cut back over to that screen and I'll show you what you'll see when you have completely installed the operating system. Okay, so what we have here is it says OS is installed. And I think we only put one in, but hey, that's fine. So are you getting the screen okay? Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it okay, and what's going to happen is a utility will come up that's going to let us finish our job. So I'll say okay, and it reboots. Now this is all the screen craziness that you see flying by is Linux loading up. The 4 raspberries along the top tell us that this is a quad-core chip, so there are 4 microprocessors inside of one chip. So that's the indication that you get from those 4 raspberries. When any of your computers, if you have a Mac or a PC, this kind of stuff goes on behind the scenes anyway, but they hide it from you. But on a Linux machine, you see all this ugly stuff. And once you get really kind of good at it, those little lines that fly by might even mean stuff to you that'll help you troubleshoot. So where we end up is this utility. It's called Raspi Config. And later on, we'll learn how to pull up Raspi Config on our own. But they really did a nice job of creating this installer because it says, let's put the system on, bring the human to where they're ready to go and start making some choices to set up the system properly. So as we look through this, I started moving my mouse, but nothing works. So this, set your clock back a little bit. This is a command line interface environment. So I'm going to have to use the arrow keys on my keyboard. So if I arrow down, it goes down the list. If I arrow up, it goes up the list. Big surprise, right? So the first thing let's do, what are we going to do first? Let's set the time zone. So I'm going to go to item number 4, which is internationalization options. Notice the British spelling on it. These computers were made and developed and engineered in Great Britain. So there's a lot of things initially about them that sort of have a British feel, including the keyboard, which is another thing we'll change here in a bit. So I'm going to go down to number 4 and hit enter, and it takes me into the next menu. So obviously then one of my options is change time zone. So I'm going to hit enter there. And it thinks a little bit, and it says, well, hey, human, where you at? And I'm going to say, I'm in the U.S., so off we go. So since you're in the U.S., which time zone would you like to use? I'm in Kansas, so let's use the Central Time Zone. And it sets the time zone up for us. Another thing that we'll do in the same area of internationalization options is set the locale to be United States. These computers are capable of using many different languages. So if you happen to be in a Spanish-speaking country, you might pick Spanish. We're going to pick the good old US of A again. And that gives our language settings on the device to say, let's not spell color C-O-L-O-U-R. Let's spell it C-O-L-O-R. So I'm going to select change locale and hit enter, and it says, well, here's a bunch of possibilities. And if I scroll down, I'm using the down arrow to scroll down again, and look at all these languages and locales we have. It's crazy. When you see the asterisk here, that says ENGB UTF-8. UTF-8 is a type of language Unicode layout, and that's all geeky. But this is what we want to prefer, a UTF type locale, but we don't want EN. So I'm going to hit, they don't tell you this, but I'm going to hit the space bar, and it deselects it. Nowhere in the menu does it say this. They assume you're already a geek. Fortunately for you guys, I've been there and done that. I am a geek. I want to go down to ENUS. So, and as I mentioned earlier, I want to select the UTF-8 option. I'll hit spacebar again, and then I'm going to, let's see, I think I tab, how do I tab out? Okay, so I hit tab. How do I tab out? I know, the tab key. I hit tab, and it brought me out of my blue menu down to where it says OK on the screen. And so then I'll hit enter, and it says, well, which locale would you like to be? Well, I've deselected the UK keyboard, and so my really only option that I have left is the English US, UTF-8. So I'm going to hit enter there, and it goes in behind the scenes and it makes some changes for us and selects the UTF-8 locale. We're going to have one other adjustment to make at this screen as soon as this completes. Okay, so we're going to go back to internationalization options, and we're going to go to change keyboard layout. So I'm going to go to number 13 and hit enter, and it's doing some evil gray screen stuff. Okay, now the reason we're going to all this trouble is these devices, again, were made in the UK. And a UK keyboard, for one example, if I hit Shift @, which is the 2 key on the American keyboard, that produces an asterisk on a UK keyboard. Don't ask me why, it just does. So if I can find my actual keyboard in this list, I know I have an HP keyboard. And so I've found the HP stuff, and I think the last time I just selected, it's not the OmniBook, it has some keyboard layouts for notebooks. This particular part is an SK2885, and all I have is a 9020. So I think I just selected Hewlett-Packard Internet Keyboard, and that seemed to work. I think that was my closest option. So I go up to it, and I select Enter. And now I get to pick a keyboard layout. And you notice there's a number of those. I probably don't want Cherokee, for instance. And I can select Dvorak if you're into that sort of thing. I can use a Macintosh keyboard. I just want plain old English US. Sorry guys, took you down the rat hole there. So English US, standard US keyboard. Hit Enter. And this is asking a particular geeky thing of a key combo that sometimes programmers use. I don't see any need. We're just going to use the default for the keyboard layout. So we hit Enter there again. And no compose keys, so we're not doing anything fancy. We're not going to use Control-Alt-Backspace to terminate the X server. More appropriate for the uber geek type folk. So I'm going to left arrow over to actually no, I'm sorry. I'm going to keep it on no. And hit Enter. And it'll go ahead and set the keyboard up. And there's one other thing we've got to do when this finishes, and then we are ready to start using our Raspberry Pi device to do some programming. So the last thing we want to do, you know, the black screen with the text and so on that we had before, that is fine if you're running a server or if you've really gotten good with a command line interface. Probably not there yet. We're going to get better, but we're not there yet. So what we really want to have happen is when I start up my Raspberry Pi, I get a nice, pretty desktop environment. And that's called an X window. But I will select, just to make it a lot easier for us as beginners, I'm going to go ahead and go to, where is it? Enable boot to desktop or scratch. So I'm going to say, let's go ahead and select, we want this to go ahead and boot into a graphical user environment so we'll be more comfortable getting around in it. So I'm going to make that selection on number 3. And I am going to say the second option, which is log in as the user Pi, which is the default user on this device. Your default user is Pi. Your default password is Raspberry. So kind of hang on to that. I'm going to do a desktop login, and so hit Enter there. It sets that up, and I believe I'm done. So I hit the right arrow to go out of my menu. I'm going to hit right arrow again to finish and hit Enter. There's not a lot of documentation here, but this is why I'm making this video to help you guys out. So I hit Finish, and it says, would you like to reboot now? Why, sure, why not? So I'm going to hit Reboot. It's going to go ahead and exit the system and restart, and what you should see is your brand new shiny desktop environment of Raspbian, which is our operating system we selected, and a Raspbian X window environment, which is the graphical user interface. So we've got our little color field screen again. We get the opportunity to go into recovery mode, and then it's going to go into its boot sequence where you're going to see the white text on black background. It's doing a bunch of diagnostics and kind of getting itself ready to go, connecting itself to all the peripheral devices that are on the network or on the device itself. So once it finishes all that, it'll load up a pretty desktop environment for us, we hope. So it's setting up a variety of fun things, saying OK. Sometimes it'll say this didn't go so well. Most of the time it doesn't hurt. So I can see my mouse pointer appearing in the center of a black screen, so it's getting ready to load the graphical environment. And there's our Raspberry. And there's the rest of our desktop. So now we're ready to go to get started with a graphical user interface. And feel free to explore the various things that are on here, like a web browser. There's a link here to Raspberry Pi resources that has got a lot of good information for us. We can go to the web browser and surf the net. There's some games built in. Ooh, Minecraft. Hey, some Python games. So this is kind of where we're ready to go and get started. If you're done playing, go to Shutdown and choose to either shut down or reboot. I'm going to call it a session here, so I'm going to go ahead and select Shutdown, and there'll be some more videos to kind of say, what do we do next? So hang in there, have fun.